Welcome back. Last episode, we walked you through a full Deloitte junior consultant interview. Today, we're doing the same thing, but this time we're stepping into a PwC interview room.
Which is, it's a very distinct environment. I think a lot of people just lump the big four together, you know? Deloitte, PwC, EY, KPMG.
Yeah, they just think they're all the same giant corporate monolith.
Exactly. But they really aren't. PwC has a very specific flavor right now, especially because they recently restructured their entire global strategy around this concept they call the new equation.
The new equation. Honestly, it sounds like a math problem I would have totally failed in high school.
It's actually a lot simpler than that, but it is profound if you're a candidate. It's basically the idea that in the modern world, clients need two things. They need to build trust, and they need to deliver sustained outcomes.
Right.
And the way you do that is by combining human ingenuity, so that's the people skills, the empathy, the creativity, with technology.
Human plus tech.
Right. If you walk into a PwC interview without understanding that they are looking for that specific hybrid of human plus tech, you're probably going to struggle right off the bat.
Okay, so that's the lens we are using for this deep dive today. Human plus tech. And just like last time, we are going to role play. I'm going to be the candidate. A recent grad, maybe got a little sweaty palms, resume in hand, ready to prove myself.
And I'll be the senior manager or the director sitting across the table. I've probably done, 6 of these interviews today already. I've got my coffee, I've got your CV, and I'm looking for very specific things. Integrity, digital savvy, and that ability to reimagine the possible.
Okay, let's unpack how we're going to do this. We're going to break this down into 4 phases. We'll do the warm-up, then the behavioral stuff using that STAR method we always preach, then some competency questions where you test my actual consulting brain, and finally the tables turn where I ask you questions.
And crucially, we are going to pause the action frequently. I'm not just going to tell you if the answer was good or bad. We're going to dissect why it works psychologically, or, where a weaker candidate usually crashes and burns.
Ready to hire me. Or at least pretend to consider me.
Let's see if you've got the stamina. All right, setting the scene. Come in, take a seat.
Thanks for having me.
So I've got your resume here in front of me. I see the accounting degree. I see the internships, which is great on paper, but I'd love to hear it from you directly. Tell me about yourself.
Well, sure. So looking at my background, I've always been drawn to the intersection of business logic and data. That's why I majored in accounting, but I actually decided to minor in data science. During university, I interned at a mid-sized regional firm where I really got my hands dirty with auditing. I loved the rigor of it, but I realized pretty quickly that I wanted to do more than just, check the boxes on what happened in the past. I wanted to help solve the actual problems I was finding. So that brings me to the present. I'm currently looking for a role where I can apply that analytical rigor to complex, forward-looking client challenges. And looking toward the future, my goal is to build a career at a top-tier firm like PwC where I can make a tangible impact on how businesses operate in the digital age.
Okay, cut. Let's pause right there.
Ooh, how did I do? I felt like I was reciting a script a little bit there.
It was a little rehearsed, but honestly, in an interview context, prepared is so much better than rambling. That was a textbook past, present, future structure.
I felt safe, for sure.
Structure is safety in an interview. But here is the nuance. You need to be careful not to sound completely robotic. What saved you there was the pivot. You started with the past, the degree, and the internship, but a lot of candidates just get stuck there.
Yeah, they just read their resume out loud.
Exactly. They spend 5 minutes telling you about every single class they took. You moved to the present very quickly, and specifically, you highlighted the shift from auditing to problem solving.
Is that a pretty common pivot?
It's a crucial one. Auditing is retrospective, right? Consulting is perspective. By explicitly saying, I didn't want to just check boxes, I wanted to solve problems, you're signaling that you actually understand the fundamental difference between the two service lines.
You got it.
If you hadn't made that distinction, I might worry you're just applying to every single Big Four job opening you see online.
And what about the future part of the answer?
You landed it perfectly by mentioning the digital age. It connects right back to that new equation concept we talked about. You didn't just say, I want a job. You said, I want to impact how businesses operate. It's a subtle difference, but it really frames you as ambitious. Overall, very solid. It was what, about 90 seconds?
Yeah, tried to keep it pretty tight.
Perfect. Anything over 2 minutes for that first question, and I honestly start checking my watch.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump back in. You've told me who you are. Now I need to know why you are actually here.
Ready.
So, you mentioned wanting to work at a top-tier firm. But look, you could go to Deloitte, you could go to EY, you could go to a boutique firm. Why do you want to work at PwC specifically?
I've done a lot of reading on where the industry is going, and two things about PwC really stood out to me compared to the others. First is the firm's commitment to corporate responsibility. I was reading about the Earn Your Future program, specifically the work around financial literacy for youth.
Yeah.
That resonates with me because I've actually done some tutoring in the past, and I love that the firm puts actual real-world resources behind community impact. But secondly, and maybe more professionally, I'm incredibly excited about the focus on digital upskilling. I read about the Digital Accelerators program. I don't just want to be a consultant. I want to be a tech-enabled consultant.
Hmm.
I know PwC is investing heavily in tools like Alteryx and Tableau for its people, and I want to be in an environment where I'm expected to keep those skills sharp, not just, rely on Excel.
Okay, pause again.
Was that too much name-dropping? I kind of felt like I was just listing their website back to them.
It can definitely feel that way when you're saying it, but from the recruiter side of the table, it sounds like music. Here's where it gets really interesting. Most candidates just give me fluff.
Like what?
They say, oh, I love the people, or PwC is the best brand in the world.
Which means absolutely nothing.
It means you didn't do your homework. But you mentioned Earn Your Future and digital accelerators.
It's a specific program.
Exactly. But let's dig into why that worked. You didn't just name the program and stop there. You connected it directly to yourself. You said Earn Your Future resonates because you have tutored people yourself. You said digital accelerators matters because you actively want to learn Alteryx and Tableau.
So I'm essentially building a bridge between their marketing brochure and my own resume.
Precisely. And by specifically naming tools like Alteryx or Tableau, you are demonstrating that digital upskilling isn't just a corporate buzzword to you. You know that PwC is trying to move its workforce away from manual spreadsheet grinding and toward automated beta workflows. That tells me you are ready to hit the ground running.
That makes a lot of sense. It's showing true alignment, not just empty flattery.
Correct. If you just flatter the firm, I get bored. If you show me how you fit into the firm's actual strategy, I get interested.
All right, let's move to phase 2. This is usually where the anxiety really spikes for people. Behavioral questions.
Oh boy. The dreaded STAR method. Situation, task, action, result. Don't dread it. Embrace it. It's your best friend because it actively stops you from rambling. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to give me a concrete story. All right, let's get back in character.
I'm ready.
That's great to hear about your interest in our digital tools. But look, consulting is rarely smooth sailing. You're going to face fires. Describe a time you worked as part of a team to solve a complex problem under pressure.
Sure. In my last internship, I was part of a team of 4 working on a final presentation for a client's migration to a new CRM system. It was a pretty high-stakes project. 2 days before the deadline, we were running a final validation and found a massive discrepancy in the data migration logs. Basically, a huge chunk of customer data hadn't transferred correctly. That was the situation.
Sounds stressful.
Definitely. The task was pretty clear, though. We had to fix the data integrity issue without missing the client presentation deadline, which was exactly 48 hours away. If we presented bad data, the whole project would have been a failure.
So what did you do?
Well, the action I took was to immediately organize a triage meeting with the team. We really didn't have time to panic. I suggested we divide and conquer based on our technical strengths. One teammate handled the client communication to buy us a little buffer, but I personally took the lead on the line-by-line code review because I had the strongest SQL background. I ended up staying late that night to rewrite the query script to isolate the corrupted rows.
And what was the outcome?
The result was that we recovered 99% of the data by the next morning. We delivered the presentation on time, and the client actually commended us on the transparency and the accuracy of the report. My manager later mentioned that the way we handled the crisis built more trust than if everything had just gone smoothly from the start.
Oh, correct.
So saying I personally took the lead, that felt, I don't know, a bit arrogant. I'm always told to be a team player in these interviews.
And that right there is the single biggest trap in behavioral interviews.
Really. Being humble is a trap.
Yes. Candidates are so afraid of sounding arrogant that they use the royal we and say, we fixed the code, we analyzed the data. And I sit there thinking, okay, but what did you actually do? Did you get coffee for the people coding, or did you write the script?
So you have to claim credit for your part.
You have to claim your specific contribution. Notice you said, I suggested we divide and conquer, and I took the lead on the SQL review. That is specific. It's not arrogance, it's evidence. Arrogance is saying I saved the day because I'm a genius. Confidence is saying I used my SQL skills to fix the specific error.
That distinction makes a ton of sense. And what about the result part? I tried to quantify it with a percentage.
And that was key. Recovered 99% of the data. Consultants love metrics. If you had just said, and then it worked out fine, it lands completely flat. But saying the client was satisfied and the manager commended you, that provides crucial third-party validation.
Okay, so stick to the structure, use specifics, and don't be afraid of the word I.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to throw you a curveball. This is the kill screen question. PwC cares a lot about values. One of their core values is act with integrity, so I'm going to test that.
Hit me.
Tell me about a time you made a mistake or had to admit an error.
Oh, man. Okay, in a previous role during a really busy season, I was preparing a financial summary for a senior partner. I was rushing, trying to be super efficient. After I submitted it, I was reviewing my notes, and I realized I had actually used a Q3 tax rate for a Q4 projection. It threw the bottom line off by a small but significant margin.
And
Well, the easy thing would have been to just hope nobody noticed because it was buried in the appendix. But I knew that integrity matters way more than appearing perfect. So the action I took was walking straight to the partner's office. I didn't email him. I went in, I admitted the error immediately, and I handed him a corrected version that I'd already printed out.
how did he react?
He was annoyed about the error. Obviously, he's a partner. But he actually thanked me for catching it before he went into the client meeting. The result was that I learned the true importance of double-checking work. I actually implemented a pre-submission checklist for myself right after that, and I haven't made a calculation error like that since.
Cut. That was risky, but excellent.
It feels incredibly dangerous to admit you messed up the math in an accounting interview.
It is risky. But do you know what's significantly worse?
What?
A candidate who says, my biggest mistake is that I'm a perfectionist, I just work too hard.
Ugh, the classic humble brag.
It's the worst. It tells me absolutely nothing. Or worse, a candidate who says, I made a mistake, but it was actually my boss's fault for not giving me clear instructions. That is an immediate, hard fail.
So why did this specific answer work?
Because you owned it. You said, I walked straight to the partner's office, you showed courage, and then, and this is the most important part, you showed remediation. You created a checklist. You put a system in place to ensure it never happens again.
So it's less about being perfect from day one and more about being a safe pair of hands.
Exactly. I need to know that if you mess up, and you will mess up because you're a junior consultant, you will tell me before the client finds out. That is what integrity looks like in actual practice.
Got it. Okay, let's move into phase 3, competency and case-like questions. This is where we test the business brain, right?
Right. I need to know if you can think like a consultant, not just a university student. Consultant life involves dealing with people, and people can be difficult. How do you handle a situation where a client is dissatisfied or demanding?
I think the key here is empathy and communication. I remember a group project where our client, with the professor acting as a stakeholder, kept changing the scope of our deliverables. My strategy was to stop saying yes to everything and start asking why. I set up a meeting to understand the actual root of his dissatisfaction. It turned out he wasn't mad about the work itself. He was worried we wouldn't hit a specific metric he just hadn't clearly communicated to us yet.
So how did you handle that once you knew?
Once we understood the real goal, I put in the extra hours to realign our project to that specific metric. I kept him in the loop with daily updates, probably over-communicating, honestly, just to make sure there were no surprises. We ended up delivering a revised outcome that hit his target perfectly. It taught me that sometimes you have to go above and beyond to maintain the relationship, but you also have to firmly manage expectations.
Good. Pause.
Did I hit the client mindset target there?
You did. You identified the why. Consultants are, at their core, problem solvers. If a client is mad, there is a reason. You didn't get defensive. You investigated. And you used the phrase, go above and beyond, which is absolute music to a recruiter's ears, but you smartly balanced it with managing expectations.
It's that tricky balance of setting boundaries while still providing great service, right?
Yes, it is. Now let's do one more competency question. PwC clients are in banking, healthcare, tech. The landscape moves incredibly fast. How do you stay updated on industry trends relevant to our clients?
Well, I don't just scroll social media. I try to really curate my consumption. I read the Wall Street Journal every morning for the macro view. But specifically for tech trends, I follow a few key industry newsletters. But more importantly, I try to ask myself, so what? If I read about a change in interest rates, I try to think, how does this actually affect a retail client's supply chain versus a bank's lending portfolio? I use tools like Feedly to aggregate news so I'm not overwhelmed. But my main focus is always on the implications, not just memorizing the headlines.
Connoisseur.
Great answer,
Short and sweet.
but highly potent. You mentioned the implications. That right there is the difference between a student and a consultant. A student knows the news. A consultant knows what the news means for the business.
So what? That's really the magic question.
Always. If you can answer so what, you automatically bring value. Okay, phase 4, we are in the home stretch. This is usually where the candidate relaxes a little too much and completely ruins it.
Do you have any questions for us part of the interview? Exactly. If you say, no, I think you covered everything, you basically just failed the interview.
Because it shows zero curiosity on my part.
It shows zero engagement. Or if you ask something like, how soon can I take vacation? Or how many hours do I really have to work? Those are massive red flags.
So what should I be asking?
Ask about the work. Ask about the future of the firm. Ask about the culture.
Okay, stepping back into character, yes, I do have a couple questions. Going back to the Digital Accelerators program you mentioned earlier, I'm really curious, how does a junior consultant typically get involved in that? Is it something I can volunteer for right away, or is it more tenure-based? I'm really eager to get hands-on with emerging tech projects early on in my career.
That is a fantastic question. It shows genuine ambition. Usually we encourage associates to settle in for about 6 months. But if you have the aptitude, we absolutely love seeing early adoption.
That's really great to hear. And my second question is a bit more about the day-to-day. I know PwC values working together and care. Consulting is obviously a high-pressure environment with tight deadlines. How does the team here specifically support work-life balance or mental well-being when those intense deadlines are looming?
Another really strong question. We have a lot of support systems, from flexible working arrangements to regular team check-ins. We want sustainable careers here. We definitely don't want burnout.
Okay, scene. We can break character completely now.
Woo! You survived the hot seat.
I survived. But those questions at the end, let's unpack why those actually worked.
First off, the digital accelerators question. Notice it wasn't a generic do you have training question. You asked, how can I get involved early?
It shows drive and initiative.
It connects your personal ambition directly with the firm's strategic goal. PwC wants to be digital. They're spending millions on this transformation. You are basically saying, I want to help you execute your strategy. That's instant alignment.
And what about the culture question?
It's what I call a two-way street question. You are evaluating them just as much as they're evaluating you. It shows you're looking for a long-term fit, not just a quick paycheck. A candidate who asks about burnout is a candidate who actually plans to stay long enough to experience it. It shows a lot of maturity.
So we've essentially gone through the whole gauntlet. If we had to boil this entire deep dive down for you, the listener, who is prepping for this right now, what are the big takeaways? From my perspective as a candidate, I learned that structure is safety.
Absolutely. The STAR method isn't a cage, it's a ladder. It helps you climb out of the hole of your own rambling. If you don't use STAR, you will inevitably get lost in your own story.
Right. And secondly, specific sell. Dropping the names like Earn Your Future or mentioning specific tools like SQL and Tableau, it proves I want this exact job, not just any job I found on LinkedIn.
That is critical.
Yeah.
Vague answers get vague scores. Specific answers get offers. And what's your third point?
Humanity. It is totally okay to admit failure, like with the integrity question,
Right.
as long as you show exactly how you fixed it. I didn't have to be perfect. I just had to be teachable and honest.
I love that. And from the recruiter's perspective, my side of the table here is what I am checking off my mental list. Number 1 is values alignment. PwC is huge on values, integrity, reimagine the possible, working together. Your answers didn't just tell me what you did, they told me who you are and that you fit our tribe.
Right, so it's a culture fit test just as much as a skills test.
Number 2 is digital savvy. We mentioned it a few times, but for PwC specifically, this is huge right now. You have to show you aren't afraid of the new tools. You don't need to be a senior coding wizard, but you need to be ready to learn. If you seem scared of data, you simply won't get the job.
Digital upskilling might be the corporate buzzword, but it's also the day-to-day reality.
It's their entire business model going forward. And finally, number 3 is the two-way street. The questions you asked at the end projected confidence. You weren't begging for a job, you were investigating a career. That confidence is exactly what I want to put in front of a client. If you can ask me a tough question, I know you can ask a client a tough question.
That's a really empowering way to look at it. You're interviewing them too.
Always. You
Yeah.
have to remember your own value.
So for everyone listening, here's your homework for tonight. Go stand in front of a mirror and practice your tell me about yourself pitch. Time it. If it's over 2 minutes, cut it down. If it doesn't mention the future, figure out a way to add it.
And just keep in mind, they aren't just hiring a piece of paper with a resume printed on it. They are hiring a person they have to sit in a room with or stare at on a Zoom call for 10 hours a day.
Exactly. I want to leave you with that provocative thought. What kind of person are you when the wifey drops, the data's corrupted, and the deadline is in an hour? Be the person they actually want to share a coffee with when things go wrong. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the PwC interview. Good luck out there. Keep practicing that pitch, and we'll catch you on the next one.